Welcome to the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, responsible for a whole generation of children being scared to ride the elevator in public buildings. Okay, well, Tower of Terror. A ride that literally broke dimensions when it opened in Disney's MGM Studios back in 1994. When walking on Sunset Boulevard, guests can't help but notice the giant Hollywood Tower Hotel in the distance. Even though the sign on the building itself says hotel, it's just as much a hotel as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is a means of transportation. Nevertheless, the story of this iconic attraction makes you believe that you're in a 1930s Hollywood hotel. Right from the beginning of the experience in the queue line, you start to realize that something's wrong here. The sign at the start of the queue hints to the reason for this eerie feeling. Every now and then you see the words Twilight Zone Tower of Terror appear, which for normal people would be the first major red flag when entering a hotel. If that inexplicable event doesn't seem to bother you that much, you'll find some additional warnings before entering the building. For example, when you look up to the building, you'll soon realize that parts of it are broken. In fact, the whole part of the building is missing since you're able to see the elevator shafts. If those realizations alone are still not enough to withhold you from entering the building, you might want to use all your senses and brain capacity to notice that the elevators at the Hollywood Tower Hotel are still operating, and the people inside of it are screaming for their lives. At this point, your parents might have to calm you down and tell you that it's just an attraction in a Disney theme park and not an actual terrorized hotel. The fact that by this point we're in a lifelike hotel lobby doesn't really help. When you look around in this room, you can see the beauty of the building as it was originally. Everything is just very outdated. The furniture and decorations in the lobby look old and dusty. Once you've been checked in by the very unfriendly staff, you're then led into a room where everything starts to make sense. But at the same time it doesn't.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Hollywood, 1939. Amid the glitz and the glitter of a bustling young movie town at the height of its golden age, the Hollywood Tower Hotel was a star in its own right, a beacon for the show business elite. Now, something is about to happen that will change all that. The time is now, on an evening very much like the one we have just witnessed. Tonight's story in the Twilight Zone is somewhat unique and calls for a different kind of introduction. This, as you may recognize, is a maintenance service elevator, still in operation, waiting for you. We invite you, if you dare, to step aboard, because in tonight's episode, you are the star, and this elevator travels directly to the Twilight Zone.
For those of you who don't know, the Twilight Zone was a television show that ran from 1959 to 1964. And then again from 1985 to 1989. And again from 2002 to 2003, and then again from 2019 to 2020. You get the point. The original series was created by Rod Serling, the man you saw in the pre-show video. Each episode showed ordinary people trapped in extraordinary situations. As you might have guessed, you are now one of these ordinary people trapped in an extraordinary situation. By exiting the pre-show, you enter the boiler room of the hotel. You'll have to take the maintenance service elevator to get to your room. This boiler room is filled with pipelines and other facility type stuff. When you're in this space, you no longer have any connection to the outside world. You have no choice but to commit to your experience in the Twilight Zone. When everyone has taken a seat in the service elevator and the cast member has checked that your seatbelt is fastened, the elevator doors close and you start to move. First of all, I never knew service elevators had seats in them, let alone seat belts. This is a completely new experience for me. After going up for a few seconds, we see a hallway where ghosts of people who entered the Twilight Zone encourage you to follow them. The lights go out and the entire hallway transforms into space. Only the window at the end of the hallway is still there, but not for long.
One stormy night long ago, 5 people stepped through the door of an elevator into one nightmare. That door is opening once again, and this time, it's opening for you.
Wait a second, the elevator's moving forwards? What's this, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Oh no, that movie isn't out yet. Or at least not that version of it. Anyway, in the hallway you're confronted with various paranormal situations. At the end of this scene, Rod Serling's voice tries to put us at ease by basically explaining that we're f***ed.
You are about to discover what lies beyond the 5th dimension. Beyond the deepest, darkest corner of the imagination, in the Tower of Terror.
And that was it. One drop from top to bottom. That was what the ride was like back in 1994. Now, if you've done any version of Tower of Terror in the last 2 decades, you know that there are multiple drops. You go up and down a few times, but that was not what the Imagineers originally had in mind for the ride. You see, back in the late 80s, at the start of the 90s, Disney CEO Michael Eisner wanted to build an attraction with a drop element. There's some information on the internet about 2 concepts for such an attraction, which never came to be. The first one is Geyser Mountain, an attraction that takes guests underground in a mining complex. As the name suggests, geysers would also be present in this area. Guests would go deep underground to see the beautiful caverns with colorful crystals and underground waterfalls. At a certain point, the geyser would erupt and the ride vehicle would shoot up out of the geyser and high into the mining structure on top. The second concept would have been a Journey to the Center of the Earth themed attraction with a similar story. You go underground and shoot up, you get the gist. Multiple online sources say that both of these attractions were originally planned for Euro Disneyland and were predecessors to the Tower of Terror concept. That includes the many YouTube videos that cover the history of Tower of Terror. And I think they're all wrong. Well, not all of them, but at least the ones that say Geyser Mountain was originally planned for Euro Disneyland. I found a blog post on the Disney and More blog that includes an interview with Pat Burke, the Imagineer who worked on the Geyser Mountain project for Euro Disneyland. He says that the ride was originally planned for Frontierland in Disneyland Anaheim around 1994. Then, in 1998, 4 years after the original Tower of Terror ride opened, Pat was asked to do a study on possibly adding Geyser Mountain to Frontierland in Euro Disneyland. The Journey of the Center to the Earth attraction could have been planned before Tower of Terror actually opened, since it was meant to be part of Discovery Mountain, an expansion for Euro Disneyland's Discoveryland, which later became Space Mountain. Space Mountain opened in 1995, and I think the original plans for Discovery Mountain date back to before 1992, when the park wasn't even open yet. So it's kind of a vague story on whether or not previous plans for a drop ride inspired Tower of Terror as we know it today. But what we do know is that it eventually ended up in Disney's MGM Studios. This park first opened its gates in 1989, and during its infant years was often seen as a half-day park. There were only 2 real rides in the park back then, the Studio Tram Tour and the Great Movie Ride. Disney had to take drastic measures to make this park more worth visiting in the eyes of the guests. So they had to come up with a new e-ticket attraction, and you've guessed it, that was Muppet Vision 3D. No, I'm just kidding, it was Tower of Terror. Not that I don't like the Muppets, I wanted to be funny. Anyway, since Eisner wanted an attraction with a big drop, Tower of Terror was the perfect fit, and that's exactly what Disney built. An attraction with one big drop. Then in 1996 they unexpectedly changed the ride to feature 2 drops. Imagine being a regular Disney World visitor and going on Tower of Terror that day. Oh, I've been on this ride 1,000,000 times in the last couple of years, nothing to be scared about. Why are we going back up? In 1999 they added a 3rd drop, and since 2004 the drop sequence has been randomized, so you never know what experience you're gonna get. Which I think must have improved the ride experience, especially for regular visitors. It's said that even the cast members don't know what drop sequence will be used when they launch the ride. It's definitely clear why many Disney fans think Tower of Terror is one of the best rides Disney has ever produced. The entire experience is just so well thought out. From the moment you enter the queue, the experience starts. The building itself just looks intimidating, and once you're inside you start to notice some incredible details. It actually feels like it could be a Hollywood hotel in the 1930s. As I said at the start of this video, the ride itself literally broke dimensions. When the elevator starts to move forward, you realize that you're not on a typical drop tower. You're in the Twilight Zone, and the scenes around you have some great special effects. This ride has been copied around the world for other Disney parks. The first of which was built in 2004 in the struggling Disney's California Adventure Park. By this time the original attraction had been open for 10 years, and the Imagineers felt that they could improve on the ride system for this new attraction. So they added a 3rd elevator shaft for more capacity. Each of these shafts would be able to operate on their own, making it possible to do maintenance and refurbishments while the attraction remains open. They changed the exterior of the building, which I guess fit more within the California Adventure Park. They also changed some of the scenes in the ride, and they removed the 5th dimension scene. When you enter the building... Wait, what? They removed the 5th dimension scene? What do you mean? That was the most unusual and cool feature of the entire attraction. You can't just remove an integral part of a very successful attraction like that, is what many Disney theme park fans said at the time. You see, the 5th dimension scene in the original ride was cool and all, but had some major issues. The ride vehicle itself was trackless, meaning it could move through the 5th dimension scene by itself. This was a very advanced system at the time, but it caused problems when it didn't work. The trackless system is apparently very sensitive. If the vehicle moves just slightly out of the way, sometimes caused by dropped objects on the floor, it stops, causing not only that vehicle to stop, but also the approaching vehicles. This was of course a very frustrating situation, since half of the attraction would be stopped, and the already very long wait times for the attraction would increase even more. Also, in Walt Disney World they have a lot of space. I don't know if you've ever looked at Disneyland or California Adventure in Google Maps, but space is very limited in those parks. The 5th dimension scene added a lot of depth to the original attraction. Basically, the entire backside of the building was needed to create this scene. That was simply space they didn't have over in California. So what was the ride experience like without that scene? I was about to tell you, calm down, okay. It's less dark ride focused and more drop tower focused, I guess. Sure, they have the mirror and hallway scene where Rod Serling tells you to
wave goodbye to the real world.
Then you go up and down a couple of times and that's basically it. It's fine, it's great, it's good attraction, and I don't want to act like it's not good or anything, but the removal of the 5th dimension scene just makes it a bit less good. It's like eating a cake, but without any frosting. It's still good and tastes nice, but you're not having any frosting, so it could have been better. An almost identical copy of this ride opened in 2007 over at the struggling Walt Disney Studios park in Disneyland Paris. Wait a second, that sounds familiar. MGM was seen as a half-day park, the struggling Disney's California Adventure Park, so 3 of the Tower of Terror attractions were built in a park that was struggling at the time. Really? Well, to be honest, I think all 3 parks did actually improve massively when they added this ride. It almost seems like Disney just adds a Tower of Terror ride to any park that's not really doing that well in order to boost its popularity. And it seems like it works too. From now on, we'll remember Tower of Terror as the ride that saved Disney theme parks. Sort of. Anyway, the ride in Paris is actually a very close copy of the ride in DCA. The exterior looks the same, and I think when it opened the ride itself was also exactly the same. But in 2019 they changed the French version of the ride into the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, a new dimension of chills. This new version offers 3 different experiences that are all similar but have some major differences. The Malevolent Machine, the Shaft Creatures and the Fifth Dimension are the names of these ride experiences. Each one of them features Sally Shine's ghost. Sally haunts the elevator shafts in the hotel and has multiple appearances in all of them. They start off very similar, with Sally saying, "I wouldn't go in there if I were you." The elevator goes up and falls back down again. In the Malevolent Machine, Sally then appears in the mirror and tells you, "I warned you, but you didn't listen." The ride goes up and down a couple of times and eventually the next scene appears, where you'll see 5 people who disappeared in the hotel. They get hit by lightning after a while. Sally comes back and... At the end of the ride, Sally says, "Next time you should listen," and then the guests are able to leave. These 3 scenes that I've just described are different in each ride experience. In the Shaft Creatures, you'll hear the laughter of the creatures in the elevator itself. In the mirror scene, the guest's reflection disappears and Sally says, "If you scream, it will only get worse," hinting at the laughter of the creatures. The hallway scene actually starts with darkness and stars, followed by Sally standing in the hallway. "They know you're here. Whatever you do, don't scream." At the end she says, "Next time be quiet." Then in the Fifth Dimension ride experience, Sally says, "Where have you gone?" in French before the ride first goes up. Then in the mirror scene she says, "I can't see you. Don't get lost in this dimension." Then, normally, the hallway scene is next, but this time we don't get to see the hallway. We just see stairs and Sally. She then tells us to come with her before the drop sequence starts. At the end of this experience, she says, "Next time you might not make it back." Now you're probably sitting at home thinking, okay, that's nice, but that doesn't really seem to make much of a difference. Let me tell you. This is actually quite good. I love the fact that they kept the Twilight Zone theme and storyline and just changed the ride experience itself. The ghost of Sally actually makes the story a bit more cohesive, acting as a sort of main character in the ride. In all of these new experiences, you start off by going up very fast and falling back down again before the mirror scene is shown. They just bring some more excitement to the first part of the ride compared to how it was originally. The queue, the pre-show, the boiler room and the exit haven't changed for this version of the ride. Neither has the exterior. It is still the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I'm curious about the future of this attraction though. Recently Disney opened Avengers Campus in the Walt Disney Studios park right next to the Tower of Terror. Will it get the same treatment as one of its predecessors? We'll have to wait and see. And let's not forget that there's still one more Tower of Terror that is not themed around the Twilight Zone in Tokyo DisneySea. The only park that was not struggling when Tower of Terror opened there. This ride is completely different. Since people in Japan are not familiar with the Twilight Zone television show, Imagineers decided to create a new story for this attraction. Just looking at the exterior of the building, you can immediately see that this story takes a completely different approach. Now for the background story. Let me summarize it. The hotel you see in the American waterfront area of the park is owned by Harrison Hightower III. His family has always been very wealthy, and to show off his wealth, Harrison travels all over the world to find the most amazing cultural antiques. On one trip to the Congo River, Harrison found the Mtundu tribe. Their idol was a small statue called Shiriki Utundu. Harrison, of course, wanted the statue for his own collection. They didn't want to sell it to him, so he stole it. Once he came back to his New York hotel, he gave a New Year's party. While people were partying in the hotel, he went up to his penthouse to find a spot for his latest antique, Shiriki Utundu. Someone tells him to be careful with the statue, but Harrison doesn't listen. In fact, he puts out his cigar on the statue's head. As he got in the elevator, the clock struck midnight and all lights in the hotel went out. The elevator had dropped to the floor, but there was no sign of Harrison Hightower III in the elevator's remains. The only thing they found was Shiriki Utundu, the statue. Now let's look at the ride itself. You can definitely see that it's still Tower of Terror. The shape of the building is comparable to the one in DCA in Paris. Once you go inside, you will also see a hotel lobby that hints at what happened in the background story. You'll see the elevator at the back of the lobby is, well, broken to say the least. Here we go again with red flags while checking into a hotel. The pre-show is very different though. No old television set, instead you see a stained glass window with Shiriki Utundu, the statue that Harrison Hightower III stole on his last trip. Here the story gets told about his unfortunate disappearing. There is actually a very cool special effect used in this pre-show. The statue disappears completely at the end. Don't worry though, you'll see him again. I need to quit smoking. Once the ride starts, well, see for yourself. By the way, that is actually legendary Disney Imagineer Joe Rohde as the actor portraying Harrison Hightower. I don't care what anyone else has to say, that must be the best view from any of the Tower of Terror rides. It might even be one of the best views in any theme park.
I forgot to do it.
Okay, let's be honest here for just a second. No jokes, no kidding around. That must be one of the best attractions Disney has ever created. The drop sequence is probably not as intense as some of the other rides, but the story, the decorations, the pre-show and the ride experience totally make up for that. Don't get me wrong, I really like the original Twilight Zone theme. I like the Fifth Dimension scene in the original, and I still think Paris' latest version is great. But this is just on another level. Tokyo has rides that Disney just doesn't make anywhere else anymore. An original story combined with incredible theming both inside and outside of the attraction. I think previous to this ride opening in 2006, Disney's last example of such an attraction was the original Space Mountain from the Earth to the Moon in Euro Disneyland, which opened in 1995. Now, as you might have noticed, I didn't talk about DCA's transformation of Tower of Terror into Guardians of the Galaxy, simply because that's not a Tower of Terror attraction anymore. It's now a Guardians of the Galaxy ride. If you want me to talk about that ride in another video, please let me know and I'll see what I can do. If you enjoyed my video, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. I know all YouTube creators say that, but I really mean it. These videos take a lot of time to make and it would be great to see some actual improvements in my channel. Thanks for watching.